working out for me, that's not God's will.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
And I think that has been a theme since the beginning of college of me sacrificing for the future. I've always wanted to have kids. I've known I've wanted to have kids since high school. I was like, I can't wait to be a dad. I cannot wait. So part of that wanting to make money was to financially put stuff aside so that once kids happen, I have something for them. Because realistically, I'm an actor. I'm not a movie actor. I'm a theater actor. So we don't make money. We make livable wage if we're acting. When we're not acting, we make zero. So there's always been that kind of goal to not provide for myself, but to provide for my future. And I'd do things like eat 1 pack of ramen a day. I wouldn't eat because I was like, well, Matthew right now, who's 22, has a very resilient body. Matthew, when he's 35, probably won't have as resilient of a body. So I can do this now because I won't be able to do it then. So I could set money aside now so that then I'll have it.
But it's a personal question if you have to. When you put money aside, are you able to save up or no?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? I can't.
For me, yes. Okay. I forget about that money. Because, and then it's kind of bad because I'm one of those people that I'll say, I never want to touch that money. Even if something horrible happens, I want to not have to touch that money. But.
And you stay with that?
Thankfully, yeah,
you can. Yeah. No, in my case, something would happen.
Yeah.
And I have learned it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
If I try to save some money, some sort of expense, my own or something where it goes away, because I think it's in my spiritual journey, it's a constant reminder that I have to look up to God for the provision. And if I'm like, oh, I got some money here. No. Yeah. Sometimes like random, like getting a ticket. I'm like, oh my God.
If I had that money put into my checking account, I still wouldn't feel like I got this. Because I'm an actor.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
But that's right. I think that's the difference is if I had a 9-to-5 job and I had job security, then yeah, sure, that money I would feel comfortable, right? But because of what I'm called to do, I'll never feel comfortable. So even potentially having what some would call an abundance, to me, doesn't feel like that.
Because I might not get a role for the next 6 months.
Yeah, because what if I do have to dig into that?
But if you change that mindset, right, which we've been talking about, it's okay.
And I have changed the mindset from borderline starving myself to now I enjoy life. I eat what my body wants.
Yeah.
And like I nourish myself. I'm good. But then on top of that, I don't feel like I can't take a trip. I don't feel like I can't go to Europe for a week or whatever with my girlfriend because that's an important thing that I like doing and that she likes doing is traveling. And I think that all comes back to the more you know about other people, the more you understand about other cultures, the more you can help define yourself and help know yourself.
Definitely.
So the more I can still do that, the more I'm getting closer to myself, which is getting closer to God. So I view it in a different way now than what I would have back then, which is hoard, right? Now it's hoard a little bit and then use this money and then use the money for something that is going to actually provide sustenance.
That's very powerful. So I have another question about this journey through the college and living in the bus, living at a party island, getting slapped by a gentleman, crazy guy, right? What was your spiritual practice or practices, like reading the Bible, praying?
Yeah.
What were you still doing that you kept you closer to God?
So during college, I was part of the choir, and we would sing at churches probably once every other week, so pretty often. It was a Methodist affiliated church,
Mm-hmm.
a Methodist affiliated university. So we would go to Methodist churches around the area. And then that on top of that, I would read the Bible probably once a week, not too much. And then we went on a spring break choir tour, which would be an extended like 2 week, 1.5 to 2 week long bus trip around some area of either the U.S. or Italy. We went to one time,
Cool.
and then I did study abroad in Prague.
And you sang in St. Peter's Basilica?
Yep,
Yeah, we talked about that.
yeah. So I sang gospel song in St. Peter's Basilica.
It wasn't a hymn?
No, it was a gospel song. It was a spiritual.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's those moments were things that helped center me. When I strayed. Those moments of, well, you got to wake up at 7 a.m. to go get on a bus and drive to a church and sing and listen to a whole entire scripture. Okay, good. Thank you. Because I needed that.
Yeah.
You know?
So when you sang at the Methodist churches, this was from the hymnal? Because I know there's a United Methodist hymnal. Did you sing more hymns, like very traditional language?
No.
Or
so
very contemporary?
We would sing our repertoire. So our repertoire was mostly spirituals. And then on top of that, some secular songs, but we wouldn't sing the secular songs at a church. That was just for our choral recitals. But then at the church, we'd sing probably 2 or 3 either spirituals or another song that had to do with something spiritual but wasn't technically a spiritual.
Why not technically spiritual? Was it more?
Because it's more of a core. So the way the choir worked was it wasn't a Christian choir. We're just a choir
with different students.
Yeah. And then we happen to sing songs that are from different parts of the world or whatnot. Like we sang we had a Hindu song, we had a Arabic song, we had a Swahili song.
Hindu, the religion, or Hindi, the language?
Hindi, the language.
Hindi.
And it used their scale, because their scale is a different scale than it had like 9 notes instead of 8.
Sing on the blacks in simple words.
Yeah.
The notation is the black. And they also have a do re mi fa sol, but
that scale, they have an extra note in it, and it's a different.
I didn't know that. Okay.
The amount of space in between each note is different than every other one.
I didn't learn the music in the Eastern thing, but I know when an instrumental someone plays on TV, so they use black notations.
Okay.
Where here, like C major type thing, they don't do that.
Yeah.
So cool. So the message, did these songs have some message?
Yes.
Or they were like just like pretty woman?
No. So there were some that were like that.
Okay.
But then the songs that we would sing in churches had a message. Yeah. So we had it's hard. I did 4 years. So over 4 years I sang probably 160 songs. So I can't really remember all of them.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are it's very interesting. The choral world has, I'd say, a good 5 or 6 contemporary composers right now who kind of arrange almost all the music that all the choirs sing. So like almost all choirs sing the same like 16 to 50 songs.
Wow.
At some point in a 4-year span. Right. So we would sing those songs, which are like choral music. But then on top of that, the spirituals were not choral music. That's just a spiritual that then we sang and had a 4-part harmony. And then on top of that, there were those other languages that we learned. We learned a French one. We learned a Spanish one. Yeah. So we learned a lot of, we learned Italian. And then we would do like, we did Handel's Messiah one year. So, yeah.
So are you a tenor?
No, I'm actually a bass.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. But
That's
because
nice.
of
Yeah.
because of musical theater, I'm I'm a
Good actor
I'm a
too.
baritone. I'm a baritone. That's what I like to say.
But you
But
can
yeah.
act well, and you
Yeah,
know you
yeah,
said a
yeah,
great voice to act.
yeah.
Which
But
I don't.
but yeah, no, for choir I was actually a bass too. So I was the
Oh,
lowest. Yeah.
wow.
And in I had the lowest voice in North Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that exciting? Yeah. I only know that Daddy sings bass.
Yeah.
Mama sing tenor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So have you acted in a play or a piece that kind of required you to use that voice so far?
So far I have mostly spoken in this register, in
Okay.
the normal register.
Yeah, sometimes like and it depends on the stage of life. This is me. So
Yeah.
the movie we filmed, there was one movie we shut down. I think we were
Uh-huh.
talking about that
Yeah.
during the break, and before that we finished a movie where when I saw I'm seeing overseeing the editing, and I'm like, oh my god, I suck.
Mhm.
I didn't do well. It's like
Yeah.
a terrible acting and all that, and the voice is up here. Because you also have to read the actors. It doesn't matter it's a film or a
Yeah.
TV. Unless you're making a film where you have a lot of freedom with time and
Yeah.
budget, which nowadays is very difficult. Things are so expensive. But you're if you're going through some emotional trauma, if you're going through some issues in your life, if the season
Yeah.
hasn't been great, I think I have developed newer allergies, especially the seasons,
Yeah.
and we all sneeze and all that.
Yeah.
So then my voice really gets stuck and more nasally,
Yeah.
whether or not you like. And then back in the day, I was in the acting school. I used to do 45 minutes of warm up every day in the morning.
Wow.
I can't do that anymore, right?
That's a lot. That's a lot of warm
But
up.
I was so passionate.
Yeah, yeah.
I was so committed. And then, of course, you like, oh, I'm kind of star. I make my own content.
Yeah.
And people just enjoy it. Because, and this is also something, when you showcase your work to people, first of all, we live in a polite culture. So no one have ever said, Franklin, you suck.
Yeah.
But a couple of times when you hear like, oh my God, you're so great at this, then you're like, okay, I'm great.
Yeah,
Why should I have to really work on this?
Yeah.
Which is a bad thing. It's the same thing what I was talking about in Christian context. Oh, I'm saved. Why should I work on myself?
Yeah.
But that's a very dangerous place to be in.
Yeah.
And because then you begin to take things for granted. Uh, so one should keep, whether it's in acting, no matter what work you do, I think there's always a room to improve as an accountant.
Yeah.
The laws change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't know the IRS has changed a form and you filing someone's taxes,
Yeah.
and but there's a company, payroll company.
Yeah.
So when we had that business I was talking to you about, so the company was paying the employees.
Yeah.
And last year I received a letter from IRS and they said you owe, I don't know, 3-4 grand. I was like, wow. So I talked to my accountant. He said actually the company did not file the right form. So it was their mistake because of which they were sending me a fine. But they don't use the term fine. In accounts, they use a different term. Something that they gotta pay, sort of fine, but it had a different term he used because he's always improving himself, which is great. And so he brought me online and we spoke to the company and they said, oh yeah, it's not a mistake, we'll file it. So the point is that you gotta keep up with the same thing. If you just talking about shepherd and the sheep, but you don't really, unless you're working as a shepherd in Italy. I've seen somebody was like showing you a vlog then, and I was surprised. And this guy was showing the shepherd guy comes from Romania, and he works as a shepherd, and he had a lot of sheep. And then he maybe goes back to in certain season when there's no business. But unless you are shepherd and a sheep, you can't understand. Like for example, I have no connection ever, never had a connection with a farm.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to explain me using animals example,
Yeah.
it might not
Yeah.
work. Then how to make it relevant to me where I could understand, oh, okay, that's what it means. The Lord is my shepherd,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or streams of water, like the deer, Psalm 42.
Mhm.
I know there are a lot of deers around here,
Yeah.
but I haven't lived actually in a neighborhood where the deers are really in my driveway
Yeah. Yeah.
because I have lived in the
Yeah.
apartments.
Yeah.
And how to make me understand that.
Yeah.
And that's very important. And that's
Mhm.
why I think it's very important to keep polishing our, in an acting world, they say instruments.
Yeah.
Yeah. And same for the musicians.
Mhm.
So it's great. So you were already connected to the musical side of the faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you use a phrase, I love that kept you centered.
Mhm.
But I also want to hear from you. You decided not to be a pastor initially
Yeah.
because you thought you're not good enough.
Yeah.
That's the language you used. But Martin Luther, you talked about Martin
Yeah.
Luther.
Yeah.
Martin Luther said, we all are priests,
Mhm.
priesthood of all believers.
Yeah.
That's the concept we Protestants follow, right?
Yeah.
And so, in that way, don't you think that being good enough, it doesn't really matter? Because if you're just a believer
Yeah.
and you are a living gospel to the others around you,
Mhm.
still the standard of being good enough or not being good enough sort of remains the same.
Yeah. 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 And that's not to say that, like, even pastors, I mean, they're humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to make mistakes. They have a past,
Yeah.
you know. So that's not to say that that's it's a logical thing to think, but it's not a truism, you know. It's you can't you can't ever be good enough to be a
Mhm.
pastor or a preacher. You can't ever be
You can't be
sinless.
perfect. You
Yeah,
can't be like
you're not
God,
God.
sinless.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
so there's I think that's where it started, the doubt of trying to be that. But coming around back to it, I could be a pastor if I wanted to. I could be a minister, but I already do that. I do that work already by meeting people who are
Mm-hmm.
not of the faith and sharing my faith,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to be a good example of what it means to be a Christian in
Mm-hmm.
society right now, and trying to break those norms, and trying to be someone who is caring and loving to others in a time where people aren't.
And I think that's more effective.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the
Yeah.
pastors I've come to know, uh, most of them, and I'm saying that on the camera, that most of them are not a good example of the faith or
Mm.
Christianity, because as I mentioned earlier, they don't have time.
Yeah.
They are not empathetic. They think they are. They are not good teachers. Why? Because they are scared of their job. If I say something today, I might lose the job. Why? Because the guy sitting in the pew might not like that, and he and his family is the biggest donor of my church,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then denominationalism, unless I raise enough funds to send it to the head office, they can transfer me to a poor town.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to live in this town. I'm going to raise my children here, and it becomes very political.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a sad reality.
Yeah. It is very
So
political.
I don't think that something is that effective. I
Mm.
personally have seen a very difficult time the pastoral leadership gives you, and you are controlled, you are manipulative, and you end up becoming like that then, because
Mhm.
remaining in a part of the system that it's manipulative and that's all political and not biblical,
Yeah.
then you are part of that, and then you embrace that, and gradually it changes you
Mhm.
without knowing, because a lot of times uh you know uh, environment changes you.
Yeah. I also think that um, the missionary positions of a lot of people who go out and do missionary work through church bodies tends to be of the thought process that we are going to go and help people.
Mhm. The
I
mission works that construct homes and all that?
Yeah,
Or the evangelistic one?
both.
Both, okay.
Yeah, all of them. All of them seem to advertise, let's go out into the world and help someone, right?
Mhm.
I did a missions trip when I was a freshman in high school, my freshman year of high school, the summer of my freshman year of high school. My dad went because I had to leave early to go to camp, which is silly, but it was what it was. So we went to the Solomon Islands, which is in between New Zealand and New Guinea. It's kind of this little tiny patch of islands. We took a flight from New York to LA, LA to Hawaii, Hawaii to Fiji, Fiji to Honiara, and then took a ferry from Honiara to Beale Village.
Wow.
So we were in Beale Village. People there were cannibals. So these were people who were cannibals before we got there. And one of our history teachers at our school actually went there and was a missionary and evangelized there. And now they're not cannibals, obviously. But now we were going to give them money to buy a boat so that they can go fishing. And I think we were there for 3 weeks, and I left after week 2. And the point was to go there, give the boat, but also to be in the culture, not just to, here's something nice, we're doing it for you, but to be a part of
the same idea of not being here, rather going and being at their level.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's more like mingling in or integrating in.
Yeah. Experiencing.
Yeah.
We're experiencing each other.
Absolutely.
So we came in, stayed with them for 2 weeks, and it was life changing. That was life changing.
Was that your first travel abroad?
No, but that was my first missionary. Work.
How did it change your life?
The joy, the absolute joy of a people that, from where I come from, looked like they had nothing. And yet they were so happy. They were so joyful. They just exuded God. They exuded the Spirit. And that was actually probably what ignited me to want to be a light initially, which 4 years later, then I had a confirmation that I am the light. So that was that kind of be that positive energy, be that enforcing, like comforting and loving and joyful, rejoicing. But it was absolutely amazing to be with these kids, and we would go out and just play with them. And the culture was very segregated, so it was very boys, girls, men, women. So I would go off with the boys, my dad and the teacher would go off with the men. The girls would go off with the girls, and then we'd meet back up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
What did you guys eat most? Fish?
Mostly fish. Yeah, mostly fish. They had it's not potato, it's not yuca. I don't even know the American or the English word for it, but it's some kind of root vegetable.
Oh, wow.
But they would boil it, so it almost made like pudding. It, like when you bit into it, it would make like pudding. It was really good. And then we would go to feasts at other churches at different villages, and it was just like so eye-opening, of a totally different worldview and whatnot.
Incredible.
And I actually one day we were jumping off of a cliff into a little like water pool. It was like waterfall, and my dad said, "I bet you can't do a front tuck off there." So I did it, and I landed on my face. And I actually lost vision and hearing for 7 minutes.
Wow.
So I was swimming down thinking I was swimming up, and one of the kids pulled me out. And they were trying to talk to me, but I couldn't hear them. I was, just like that. Finally gained my sight and hearing back. We walked back to the village, and I had a fever now and not feeling good. So they put me up in a separate separate house. And when I woke up, 30 kids were sitting around me praying.
Wow.
And I was, I had a concussion. But we went to the hospital. They gave me some stuff. They thought I had malaria. Thankfully I didn't. But it was we were supposed to take a trip, and I couldn't go because I was not feeling good. So the rest of the group went. My dad and I stayed. We stayed for an extra 3 days in the village while they were away. And my dad and I actually ended up getting inducted into the village. So they performed a whole ceremony to induct us into this village, and had me play panpipes and dance with them in the ceremony, which is, they said it was the
they
first.
wear their traditional
outfit? All times.
All times. Okay.
Yeah. And they said we were the first white men to ever watch that ceremony, let alone
that's very powerful. Yeah. Must be very rewarding and great, exciting and celebratory experience.
But again, it was one of those things where they did so much more for me than I did for them. And when I hear other people talk about their missionary work, they'll talk about how much they did for them.
I built a house and
I'm going, well, did you not experience what they like?
I think
how thankful they are. Or I don't know. And it could have been. I mean, where I was such a special place, and they were such special people, and I was going with someone who had a special relationship to them. So maybe it was just that scenario, but I can't help but think that God puts us in places where we need to be, and it'll be received. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I can only speak on my experience.